This is my second time filming this video because the first time the entire video was out of focus. Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So today I'll be talking about some books that I believe are underhyped. They deserve more love. I wish more people would read them. I think they're awesome, and I think you guys should read them as well. Some of these books definitely have been hyped before. I maybe just missed the hype train, and a lot of them have really good reviews on Goodreads. I just personally think they deserve even more love than they're getting. All right, so the first book that I want to talk about is one that I read for the first time, I think last year. Absolutely loved it. It's so good. It is a very unique twist on a true historical event, and that would be Wolf by Wolf by Ryan Groudon. And I would say the entire duology is absolutely incredible. So this first book takes place during the aftermath of World War II. The twist, though, is that the Axis powers actually won. So it's an alternate historical fiction. And so in this book, we have a girl named Yael who was in a concentration camp during World War II. She had a bunch of experiments done on her, and they resulted in the ability for her to skin shift. So she is able to put on the appearance of other people. And she does this to enter a motorcycle race with the end goal of winning the race so that she can go to this victory ball and have the opportunity to assassinate Hitler. This book is absolutely incredible. The motorcycle race itself is super fun to follow. The characters go through a bunch of different countries. They end up in Japan, if I'm not mistaken, and it is just such a fun ride. The way that Yael struggles to put on this persona of this other person that she is impersonating is just really interesting to follow. It is a really difficult challenge that she has to face, and this entire book is just so good. Highly, highly recommend if you are interested in historical fiction with a twist, and I think this is definitely one of my favorite YA books of all time. Highly, highly recommend. Next up, we have a middle grade fantasy that I don't see a lot of people talk about, and I think more people should read it. It is one of my favorite books. It is so good, and that is The Two Princesses of Bamar by Gil Carson Levine. So I'm just gonna read the back because it explains the story very nicely, and I suck at explaining books. Even if I've read them a million times, I just don't do a good job at explaining books. So I will just read the back. So it says, brave and adventurous, Princess Meryl dreams of fighting dragons and protecting the kingdom of Bamar. Shy and fearful, Princess Addie is content to stay within the safety of the castle walls. The one thing the sisters share is their unwavering love for each other. The tables are turned, however, when the Grey Death leaves Meryl fatally ill. To save her sister, meek Princess Addie must find the courage to set out on a dangerous quest filled with dragons, unknown magic, and even death itself. Time is running out, and the sisters' lives and the future of the kingdom of Bamar hang in the balance. So this book is basically about one sister having to overcome her fears and her lack of courage to save her sister's life, and she does go on this very fun adventure, and it's so good. It's so good. It's a very short read, very quick, and yeah, highly recommend if you love middle grade and younger YA fantasy. And even though that's not generally my cup of tea, I just think this story is so well written, and the sister relationship is just so beautiful. Please read it if you haven't. It's so good. Next up, we have A Name Unknown by Rosanna M. White, and this book is perfect for people who love to read books about libraries, books about books. It is so good, and again, I just don't see a lot of people talk about it. Also probably because it's categorized as Christian fiction, although I would not say it's preachy at all. It definitely has faith elements, but it's not something that I feel if you are not a Christian that you wouldn't enjoy. So this book is basically about a woman named Rosemary, and she was orphaned, grew up on the streets with a bunch of other children who were kind of taken in by this man, and they were taught to pickpocket, and that's basically how they survived. And then Rosemary ends up meeting this man who wants her to use her abilities of like spying and just doing all the things that she's grown up with the ability to do. He wants her to work for this man, this very wealthy man, and work in his library as kind of like a librarian, secretary, kind of there to organize his books, with this purpose of finding out if this man is loyal to Britain or Germany, because there seemed to be some family ties to Germany, and this was at the brink of World War I. And so Rosemary ends up in his library, and she's there, you know, with her own intentions. This man doesn't know why she's there. He also has his own secrets that he's keeping from basically the world around him. and he has some friends in high places in the British royal family, and it's just such a good time. There's a really good redemption story in this book. I love that they both have secrets from each other, and they're both just completely clueless as to who they really are, and you as the reader know, and it's just so fun to follow these two characters. And again, the redemption arc in this book is really good. I highly recommend this author if you have not checked her out yet. But yeah, this book is so good, and I really want more people to read it. This entire trilogy is what actually got me into reading this author's works. Highly recommend. Next up is a book I never thought I would love as much as I do, and that is Things in Jars by Jess Kidd. So this book is a magical realism historical fiction, which I haven't really read before. I am still kind of dipping my toes into this genre, and oh my goodness, it was so good. It's super gothic, very unsettling at times, really good themes, and basically this book is about a detective named Bridie, and she is a female detective in the Victorian era, and she's tasked with finding out who stole this child. And there's just so much about this child that leaves you with so many questions. And this child is very much seen as something like, she's like a spectacle. There's something about her that creeps people out, that intrigues people. And so Bridie is trying to figure out where she disappeared and who this child is, because there's just so many things about this kid that just leave people with a lot of questions. And I don't think you should know much more going into this book. It's very atmospheric. It's beautifully written, and I cannot wait to read more Jess Kidd. This book was just so good. I kind of found similarities between this book and Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield. So if you have read Once Upon a River, I would recommend checking this one out if you have not yet. Highly recommend. If you have not read it, more people should read it. This book definitely deserves more hype. Next up, we have Wildwood Dancing, and all that you should know about this book is it takes place in medieval Romania. There is so much magic. It is about 5 sisters and this alternate reality, this other world that they go into with lots of dancing and magic and all these different creatures, and this cover is just stunning. This book was so good. It was my introduction to Juliet Marillier, and her Seven Waters series is definitely talked about a lot, but this one also deserves a lot of love. It is so good, and I would highly recommend. I'm just gonna read a very short blurb on the back. It says, 5 adventurous sisters, 4 dark creatures, 3 magical gifts, 2 forbidden lovers, and 1 enchanted frog. Cross the threshold into the Wildwood and enter a land of magic, daring, betrayal, and true love. And that's exactly what this book is. It's just beautiful, and it definitely deserves to get some more love, so I would highly recommend this one. This next book is one that I almost didn't include because I've seen it start to get more traction and more booktubers have been reading it, and I'm really glad because it's so good. And that is A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. And this is about Veronica Speedwell, who is a very intelligent woman in the Victorian era. She's a lepidopterist. She studies butterflies, and she ends up having to flee her hometown. Her old spinster aunts have passed away, and this man comes and basically helps her fight off this attempted kidnapper. And so this man is bringing Veronica to London to meet his friend Stoker and stay with him for her safety. Only this man that brought her to London ends up murdered, and so Veronica and Stoker are trying to figure out what happened, and the mystery is just, very layered, and it's so good. The banter between Veronica and Stoker is my absolute favorite part of this book and the entire series. I've read the first 4 books so far. If you love really witty writing and good banter, laugh out loud moments, this book is for you. It is so good, and I just wish more people would read it. So I definitely think that more people should read it. It may not be as underhyped as the other books, but I definitely think it should get some more because it's so good. Next up, we have a very unique YA fantasy book. It is Christian fantasy, but I don't think it's extremely preachy or anything. But I would definitely recommend if you like YA fantasy, and I just think the author did a really good job with this story. So this book is called Heart of Red and Blood of Blue, and I just wanted to say thank you to Oshina for reading this book, because if you had not read it, I would not have read it. So I'm so grateful that you read it first, and then I was able to hear about it. I picked it up on Kindle, and so I'll just read the summary. So it says, a girl on the run, a kingdom to save. Princess Gisela of Steinland was born without color, albino. When her betrothal to Prince Jarek of Kronga ends in his death, it starts a 10-year war her father is determined to win, even if it means bringing her out of hiding to do it. Now, the savage Krongan war commander, Bloodless Kristoff, seeks the hearts of the entire royal family, especially Gisela's. Desperate, her father agrees to another alliance that involves her marrying an old brute of a king. Unwilling to be the sacrificial lamb, Gisela goes on the run. Thrown into the center of a battle between three kingdoms, she finds herself fighting for her life and the right to be truly loved. Can the girl who started the war find a way to end it? So yeah, this book was just full of twists and turns and intrigue and really good characterization, a really interesting medieval inspired, European inspired world, and I just absolutely loved it. I loved Gisela as a main character. It is definitely a clean romance, so I would recommend it for even younger audiences. I think it's just a beautiful story. There's really good adventure and the plot line was very well paced. I highly, highly recommend this book. Super underrated, and I just wish more people would read it because it's really good. So that is Heart of Red, Blood of Blue. And then finally we have The Lost Queen by Signe Pike, and this is a early medieval Scottish fantasy that is inspired by Arthurian legends. And I would definitely recommend it if you like books set in Scotland, if you like historical fiction with a sprinkling of fantasy. It's not super intense on the fantasy elements. I will say though that there is some adult content, so just be aware of that if you are interested in this book. It's not like Outlander level, but it is there, so just be aware of that. And this is another one of those books that is so difficult to explain because just so much happens with the main character. And so I'm just gonna read the trusty summary on the inside flap because it'll do a better job than I would. So it says, "You are about to begin an extraordinary adventure. In a land of mountains and mist, tradition and superstition, Langoreth and her twin brother Lailakin are raised in the old way of their ancestors. But the rise of a new religion heralds an era of disruption, bloodshed, and riot. When conflict brings the hero Emrys Pendragon to her family's door, Langoreth finds love with one of his warriors. Her deep connection to Maelgwyn is forged by enchantment, but she is soon promised in marriage to the son of a Christian king. Together with her brother, a warrior and druid known to history as Myrddin, Langoreth must fight for the preservation of the old way and the survival of her kingdom, or risk the loss of both forever." So this book is one that I was a little hesitant to read at first because I just didn't know how comfortable I would be with certain themes, especially when it came to religion, just for me particularly. But I think it was extremely realistic in the grand scheme of things, and after doing some research on the people of the 6th century in Britain, in the UK in general, and the different religions, and to think of how it would feel to have people come and like proselytize and, you know, try to change the way that you live your life. And even if the intentions were good, just the history of religion in general and all the wars that have been waged because of it, it's a reality. And so I'm really glad that this author included this as a major theme of the book. I don't think it bashed faith at all. I just think it was very realistic and factual, and this is just what happened. So besides all of that, the characterization, the characters in this book, I was just so attached to them. It's one of those books where a lot of fantasy readers, especially on BookTube, I have never heard them talk about this book. And I think it's definitely worth the read for historical fantasy lovers especially. So if you do love historical fiction with some magical elements to it, this is the book for you. And if you like Arthurian legends, I would highly recommend. I'm so excited to read book 2, and then book 3 is coming out in the summer of 2023 if I'm not mistaken, and I just can't wait to get back into this setting, to continue on with these characters. And yeah, I would recommend this book, just being aware of some of the content, but it's incredible. Really good story. Absolutely love it. So that is The Lost Queen. All right, guys, so that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books, if any of them sound interesting to you. If you'd like to know more about them, I'll have the Goodreads link in the description box, so you can go and read the summaries there if you want. And that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for sticking around and listening to me ramble, because I tend to do that. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Bye!